Now, it is no secret that I am a fan of Japan and things that are made in Japan. I mean, that's pretty self-evident from most of the videos I've made so far. But one of Japan's biggest exports to the Western world, at least culturally, is anime. Being an animator and artist myself, I'm naturally inclined to be an anime fan. But how did this happen? Of course, anime's become very popular in recent years, but back in the day, it was a lot more different. So if you'll allow me, here is a short story on my evolution to becoming an anime fan that I am today. Hope you'll get an idea of what my tastes are, and what shows sparked my enjoyment of it. And maybe you'll be able to relate a little bit. My anime journey began in a similar way to a lot of other kids from the late 90s to early 2000s. This was back in the era of 4Kids localizations on channels like Cartoon Network, so of course I grew up with shows like Pokemon and One Piece. Back then, these were just cartoons though. I didn't even know what an anime was, let alone what shonen and shoujo or any other anime genres were. But even back then, I knew these were a little bit different. Something about the art style, something about the tone, and the storytelling was slightly different. A good example of this is when I was a kid, I used to watch a program called Toasted TV. I was always so excited to watch Toasted TV in the mornings, but before it aired, there was always just one show that I hated. That was called Dragon Ball Z. Something about the art style, the detailed line work with different character proportions, and the long drawn detailed fights. It was like nothing I'd ever seen before, and I just hated it. I thought it was just a never-ending monkey fight. For reference, I was up to the Saiyan Saga fight with Goku and Vegeta when everyone was just completely tired and out of it. And now, that is one of my favorite anime fights of all time and my favorite Dragon Ball arc in general. But to us kids back then, they weren't any different from any other shows. They were just on TV and we watched them. But even at that young age, I found myself getting really into shows that I didn't realize were anime, but I was into them a lot more than some other kids were. Some examples of these were of course Pokemon, which I'm still a big fan of today, Dinosaur King, which was a small flash in the pan kind of monster collecting anime about dinosaurs, so two of my interests, and Deltora Quest, a fantasy anime based on an Australian novel series. Something was naturally popular in Australia with Australian kids. I would always bring up these shows and be so excited to play games with them at school and stuff, but not many of my other friends would be as interested as I was. Mainly because they had Cartoon Network and Nickelodeon and cable, which I didn't, so I was limited to the shows that were on free TV, so we didn't watch a lot of the same things, so they couldn't really relate. Then, around 2013 to 2014, I discovered Studio Ghibli for the first time. My first viewings of these were the beginnings of Totoro and Spirited Away in our Japanese class, and I remember the whole class just making fun of it and laughing constantly. We can't particularly be blamed, we weren't trying to be rude, it's just we'd never been exposed to something like that before. A mix of Japanese and Russian mythologies of yokai and creatures. We'd never experienced anything like it. But something about it really did intrigue me and it stuck with me. So about a year later I went and seeked it out by myself. And after watching Spirited Away for the first time, I truly was spirited away. The art style and the different style of storytelling, it's probably what enticed me. And immediately after watching it, I of course needed more. So my older sister and a friend of mine at the time were more into Ghibli and knew a bit more anime before I did. My friend grew up watching some Ghibli movies with his parents, who were more cultured than I was, and my older sister studied Japanese in high school, so she was a bit more familiar with what anime and everything was. And the film they both recommended was Howl's Moving Castle. I seeked it out online, watched it, and it blew me away. It was like Spirited Away, but even cooler. I loved Calcifer so much. I loved the castle, the way it moved, the way it was designed. It's the world, the magic, and everything. It was crazy. I immediately bought it on DVD the next day and showed my younger sister, and my older sister watched it all with us, and we immediately loved it. It's funny now, Howl's Moving Castle was my favorite Ghibli for a while, but it has since probably fallen to about the middle of the tier list for me. Then, from watching Howl's Moving Castle, I eventually discovered Wolf Children, which was the first Mamoru Hosoda movie I saw, and the first time I actively sought out an anime and discovered it for the first time without being influenced by anybody else. And that was another film that I really loved. It's no wonder that Mamoru Hosoda and Miyazaki are two of my favorite directors of all time. They really shaped my interests in storytelling and art from a fairly young age. This was when I was about 12 or 13 years old. This combined with me going to Japan for the first time then. I was properly established as an anime fan at that point. So things were going really good. I was most likely going to grow up, go into my weeby years, say things like I'm an otaku, and desnya, and everything, watched some degen anime, but it all changed, it all went wrong when puberty in high school attacked. At the beginning of high school, it was pretty good. Our library had a manga section. This is my first ever exposure to manga, let alone a whole manga section. So in the first semester, I read Fullmetal Alchemist up to about volume 9, and I read a little bit of Naruto, but it wasn't really my thing, and I was truly enjoying them. But at this same time, a very viral video came out that affected pretty much the rest of my high school life. This was the Filthy Frank weeaboo video. And there was nothing particularly wrong with this video. I actually did enjoy it and think it's still a pretty funny video. But for a bunch of insecure high schoolers, it was really bad if you were caught liking anything Japanese or anime related. You would get bullied to high hell. So I ended up hiding my interests a lot. I stopped reading manga, I stopped talking about it with people. It became something I was too afraid to share, something I was scared about getting caught liking, and it became just something I stopped enjoying as much, because I was too afraid of being cringy or bullied. And in all honesty, it probably did save me from doing a lot of that cringier stuff that would have probably socially hurt my reputation a lot more. But it was still not a great time. I became really insecure and became kind of recluse. I wasn't able to share any common interests with a lot of my classmates because I was too afraid of being bullied for it. And because I studied Japanese, I was already kind of roped into that group, so I was already on thin ice. If I liked anime, it would be over for me. And as the years went on, other people did like anime because there's nothing wrong with liking it, and there's always going to be people that enjoy it. So even if I had some friends that were into anime, we'd always have to talk about it in secrecy with a certain level of irony, like, oh no, I don't actually watch this stuff. I'm only watching it as a joke. I don't enjoy it or anything. It stayed this way for a really long time in high school, probably because I went to an all-boys one. And it was why I became really reclusive, and why I probably still don't share a lot of my personal interests with people. I only remember it changing towards the very end of high school, when an old friend of mine, who was a lot more popular than I was excitedly talking about how much One Piece and Naruto he'd been watching, and other kids were getting into it as well. And then by the time I studied animation at university, naturally, so many people there were fans of anime, and for the first time I was actually behind, because there's a TV network in Australia called ABC3, and they used to air a lot of anime in the evenings, also I've heard. I was apparently too old and never got the chance to watch this. So I spent a lot of my uni years trying to catch up on anime that were popular and find ones that I personally liked. In high school, I watched all the Hayao Miyazaki movies without really telling anybody, and at university I watched a lot more of the Studio Ghibli movies, so I became a true scholar on the Studio Ghibli library. I watched things like Evangelion, Keep Your Hands Off the Eizouken, Dragon Ball. I got into One Piece in my final year of uni, and I was able to embrace it a lot more with friends and colleagues and co-workers and stuff that had seen these anime as well, and it was really great. That's really one of the great things about anime. There's something for everybody. There's shonen, slice of life, romance, even those degen anime titty shows, everything really. And we can all at least share some common ground under that same umbrella. There's a lot of shared tropes, a lot of just known things about anime that we can all relate to. Some of it is a bit cringy, yes, but a lot of it is really enjoyable. Anime can be full of really fun art styles, interesting stories, and just fun shows to watch or even read in the form of manga. I'm sure a lot of people in my age demographic can probably relate to that high school teenage cringiness and of enjoying anime and being a weeaboo, but I think it brought a lot of us closer together, and we can share a lot of similar stories and experiences because of it. Anime has of course influenced my art style and storytelling. You can probably see that in my videos here. I'm very Studio Ghibli inspired. I tend to prefer the simpler anime art styles over the detailed ones, but that's just what I enjoy. Of course, many people have different tastes in anime, but one of my favorite things is discovering new anime through friends or people and getting to know people through the anime they like and getting amazing recommendations and then discovering a new show I like. It's a really fun community in that sense. As you grow beyond high school and teenage years into your early 20s and beyond, it can be really healthy and really fun to go back to those former interests you had as a kid, indulge yourself a little bit, look a bit deeper, dig a bit deeper, and discover new passions and new hobbies because of that. You'll find a lot of growth within yourself, and you'll also be able to share those experiences with a lot of people and form bonds over it. It's really great, and I encourage as many people to do it as possible. That's part of why I make videos. I want to connect to people about the things I love and passionate about, and anime is one of those things. I am curious as the years go on and anime becomes more popular and mainstream, if younger generations' pipeline into becoming an anime fan will be different. Will they be less insecure about watching these shows, or will it stay relatively the same? I am not sure, but I am excited to see the future of discussion and collaboration about anime, and just storytelling and animation in general. But regardless, I'm really curious as to what other people's journey were like for anime, what shows you like now, and what shows influenced you. Please let me know in the comments below, I'll be really eager to read all your different stories. And thank you for listening to mine. Hello, thanks for watching. A funny little story that I remembered when I asked my sister for anime recommendations. She told me that Studio Ghibli wasn't a real anime, and that the one she said was real was Assassination Classroom. I still haven't gotten around to ever seeing Assassination Classroom, so maybe I'm not actually an anime fan. Anyway, if you enjoyed the video, then please leave a comment, a like, or subscribe, all that stuff, and I will see you on the next one. Right, bye-bye.